shivling has of course given a new angle to this entire case, which of course has led to a lot of politicization from both the right and the left side. I want to ask you, how has that actually affected the law and order situation? What is the law and order situation on ground zero in Varanasi at the moment?
Well, law and order remains intact. See, Varanasi is a city where all during the course of survey also the things were normal. Yes, heavy security force was deployed to keep any untoward incident out of place. And today you see this is the main crossing, the Gozalia crossing. From here is the the walking distance to the Kashi Vishwanath. Cars are not allowed from this point forward, so devotees go all the way up. The entire market is open, the chalk area is open, and that gives you a sense that life is as routine in Varanasi. So the point here is that everyone, of course, is talking about this case. You visit any part of the city, in every by-lane, in every gully, on every lassi shop or tea shop or pawn shop, you will find this discussion happening. People pro the claims, people against the claim. But amidst all those claims, counter-claims and discussions, city remains quite peaceful.
That's actually a relief to hear that, because we are also learning that the mosque will continue to remain open to all the worshippers as well. Having said that, let me quickly go across to Delhi, as my colleague Aashutoshsrivastava is joining us from New Delhi, since let's not forget that the Apex Court is also hearing the matter today. Anvit, what do we expect at the court? Because as Priyanshu just rightly mentioned, that the finding of the shivling has added a new dimension to this entire case. Is that going to impact today's hearing?
Yes, the bench has already assembled and the hearing has started. The gyanvapi matter is listed as item number 40 in court number 4. So we believe that probably in half an hour the matter will be taken up, and we'll see what the two bench led by Justice D.Y. Chandrachud and P.S. Narasimha will observe in this matter. See, this was a plea filed in Supreme Court by Anjuman Intizamiyat Managing Committee. They have said they have the argument that this entire survey is contrary to the Places of Worship Act 1991. Right. However, this particular act is also in question, as two petitions in the Apex Court only have been filed, questioning the constitutional validity of this act. In fact, in last year, in one of those petitions, Supreme Court had also sent notices, but the centre is yet to file a reply. However, coming back to Gyanvapi, see this now Vishnu Gupta had also, after a shivling was found yesterday in the Wuzu area, and after which on the Varanasi court's order the Wuzu area was closed. Vishnu Gupta had also, on behalf of Hindu Sena, filed a petition asking the court to brush aside this entire petition that has been filed to stop this survey and videography by the team. In fact, there were also allegations that the entire survey and the commissioner that has been appointed, they have been partial, they have been biased, and we'll also see if court takes any notice of that, and if at all the
Anvit, I'm going to request you to just hang in there with us, because we also have our guests joining us live on this telecast as we speak. Vivek Srivastava is joining us on this bulletin. He's a political analyst. Aashutoshsrivastava, who's a lawyer, is also joining us on this newscast. Thank you so much, Vivek and Ashutosh, for joining us on this newscast. Let me begin by asking Ashutosh my first question. Ashutosh, as you just heard our correspondent point out the fact that the survey is a contravention to the Places of Worship Act of 1991. Now, will this act sort of have its bearings on today's hearing?
Yes, of course. See, when this act was enacted in 1991, so the Places of Worship Act, there were certain exemptions. For instance, this Ram Janmabhoomi was an exception, and accordingly, the Supreme Court could have heard this matter and decided the matter because it was an exception that was exempted from this act. Now, there are certain other exemptions. The act very well says that any place which has attained the character of a religious place as on 15th of August 1947 has to continue in the similar manner. Now, the exceptions are like, the first exception is that if the place has changed its character after 15th August 1947, right, then the provisions of the, this particular Act of 1991, that is the Places of Worship Act, will not apply. The second exception says that if any place has some ancient value of as a monument, which comes under the provisions of the ancient, monument and archaeological site remains Act of 1958, then of the Places of Worship Act will not apply. Then the third exception, talks about that if there is any sort of settlement between the parties outside the court, or if any matter has been disposed of, then that will also be exempted. Now, obviously the third exemption is not at all applicable to this matter. However, whether it falls under the exemptions of these two categories, that is, if the character was changed after 15th August 1947, or if it comes under the Ancient Monument Act of 1958, if the place has been used for a different purpose for more than 100 years. So in that case, that could be an exemption. Now, the matter before the Supreme Court will basically hear about this issue, whether it falls under the exception or not, whether the trial court, while passing such an order for the survey, was contrary to any law. Because as we have been hearing that many people have raised the issue that it is, in a way, not possible as per the Worship Act of 1991. So now the Supreme Court has to see whether it is under that category or not. Obviously, this matter was challenged before Allahabad High Court as well on the similar grounds. However, the court was not convinced and the matter was rejected. Now the matter has gone finally to the Supreme Court. Now the Supreme Court has to see whether it falls under any of those exceptions or not. But I think unless and until the survey report is submitted to the court, it will be very difficult to find out whether it falls under any such exceptions or not. So there are laws, no doubt. But yes, the Supreme Court has to see whether these laws have been properly applied. The principle of laws have been applied properly or not by passing such an interim order. Because this is not a final judgment as such which has been passed. This is just an interim order which has been passed by the trial court, which wants that there should be some survey and there should be some report. Based on that, the court can reach to a conclusion whether those exceptions are valid in this case or not. So I think the hearing even in the trial court is going on. It is not a final judgment which has been passed. Right. Now this interim order has been challenged before Allahabad High Court and then now before the Supreme Court. So it will be interesting to see as to how the Supreme Court interprets the law which is applicable and whether it comes under any exceptions and whether the decision taken by the trial court to have the survey was correct or not. That is what has to be decided today.
Right. Let me, on that note, also take my next question from Vivek Srivastava. Vivek, we just had Ashutosh pointing out the three exceptions, which of course are going to be very crucial to today's hearing.
Right.
Having said that, what sort of a political impact do you see? Now, we've been hearing the kind of comments that are coming from both left and the right front in the last couple of days. Do you think that political parties are making this as a political sort of vendetta or also making this about appeasement politics, and that they should apprehend from, actually abstain from making such comments before, the hearing actually takes any shape forward?
Right. I must say Ashutosh, was very detailed and very accurate, and his analysis was very correct technically, what he was talking of. And I would like to add to it now that firstly, yes, you are right. It's all political. I mean, the five women who actually approached for the puja of Shringar Gauri, that itself was mischievous and political. So it is a political gimmick. BJP has not been actually very successful on the economic front in this country. We are also under a crisis, very much like Sri Lanka, and people are wanting answers, so diversion is needed. So after Ayodhya, now Kashi, Mathura, I mean, that is how they are planning to work it out. If you see their social media posts, they are even talking of Jama Masjid, somebody is talking of Red Fort, somebody is saying Aurangzeb, we have already taken care of him, next is going to be Shah Jahan. So it is a political issue now, no doubt, and the Honorable Supreme Court has to give a decision. Now in this country, which is very diverse, caste-wise, religion-wise, culture-wise, language-wise, you see the courts are there to help us, the law is there to help us, the constitution is there to help us. But our final aim is to live peacefully and have a prosperous nation. There have been kings like Ashoka who were very violent, destroyed entire Kalinga, but that doesn't mean that we cannot have an Ashoka road in Odisha. Pushyapatra Shunga was another great Brahmin king, but he destroyed thousands of Buddhist stupas, and I think Buddhism lost its effect in India because of that one particular king. So much was done. But now, so many atrocities by these temples against Dalits were also committed. But if we keep on trying to rake up issues that have been buried in the history for a long time, and keep on raking it up and asking for justice from the people of this generation who have nothing to do with what happened 500 years back, 350 years back, 1000 years back, the country will not be able to survive. You will not be in a position to tolerate each other and live peacefully. While the BJP is trying to polarize in its own way, there are certain Muslim parties, who are trying to have a control on the Muslim vote bank, who are also trying to polarize.
Right, Vivek. Thank you so much for that.